Welcome to the deep dive. If you're anything like, say, the 5K runner, always looking for ways to get faster, shave off seconds, then, you know, just log in miles isn't the whole picture.
Not at all.
So today, we're diving into running efficiency, how understanding it can, give you that edge.
Exactly. For any runner chasing a PB, whether it's a 5K or even longer stuff, it's not just about raw power. It's how efficiently you use that power, especially at those race paces.
And speaking of efficiency, Garmin's just put out a new metric. It's on their Forerunner 970 called Running Economy,
Right.
designed to give you a look at the energy you're using. Now, you do need their HRM 600 chest strap for this one. It's quite specific.
Precisely. So that's our goal for this deep dive. Really get under the hood of Garmin's running economy. What is it? How do they calculate it? What affects it?
And we'll definitely look at this step speed loss concept. Seems important.
Very important. And also, critically, how this all differs from things we already know, like VO2 max and VVO2 max. Got to keep those straight.
Okay, let's start there then. Step speed loss, or SSL. Sounds pretty technical. What, in simple terms, is it telling us?
Okay, think of it like this. Every single time your foot hits the ground, you slow down just a tiny, tiny bit. It's unavoidable.
Low braking effect.
Exactly. SSL, which Garmin rolled out May 2025, measures that difference. It looks at your forward speed the instant your foot lands.
Okay.
And then your minimum forward speed while that foot is still on the ground, it's measured in centimeters per second.
Centimeters per second, right.
And as the folks at the5runner.com point out, and they're right, lower is better. You want that number small. Less braking.
Like you're gliding more smoothly.
Perfectly put. Less loss of momentum with each step.
So how does the watch, the Forerunner 970, actually, capture this? And where do I see it?
Well, the key is that HRM 600 chest strap. It's got the fancy sensors, the accelerometers, needed to pick up these really subtle changes in movement.
Ah, okay. Not just the watch itself.
No, needs the strap. That data then gets sent to the watch, currently the 970. You can see it live during your run, like on a gauge.
Oh.
Or you can look at the averages after your run for the whole thing, or even lap by lap. And you'll see SSL in centims, but also SSL percent.
The SSL percent. You mentioned that's particularly useful. Why should someone like the 5K runner focus on the percentage?
Good question. Because your raw SSL, the centimus value, well, it naturally tends to go up as you run faster. Makes sense, right? More force involved.
Yeah.
So SSL percent, the SSL percent, it kind of normalizes that. It takes the speed effect out of the equation.
Levels the playing field.
Exactly. So if you're trying to see if tweaking your form is actually making you more efficient over time across different speeds, SSL percent is the metric to watch. Lower is always the goal.
So if the 5K runner sees his SSL spiking, what are the usual suspects? Is it form, hills, just speed?
It's often a mix. Form is definitely a big one. Like if your cadence is too low or you're overstriding, reaching out too far.
Landing way out in front?
Right. That's like hitting the brakes harder with every step. So higher SSL.
Makes sense.
Terrain matters too. Garmin uses the watch's barometer to adjust for hills. So uphill, you'll usually see lower SSL gravity help slow you down a bit.
Okay.
Downhill, typically higher SSL. But remember, these hill adjustments don't work on treadmills. And SSL isn't really for walking. It's a running metric.
Gotcha. Now, thinking about braking forces, it makes me think of other metrics like SRYD has leg spring stiffness and impact loading rate. And there's Fourth Frontier's body shock, too. Are these all just different names for the same thing?
They're definitely related because they all look at ground contact, but they measure different things. SSL is laser focused on that horizontal braking, the change in forward speed while your foot's down.
Okay, horizontal focus.
Yeah. SRYD's leg spring stiffness, LSS, that's more about the vertical bounce, how springy your leg is. Impact loading rate, ILR, that's how quickly the vertical force ramps up when you land. The initial shock.
Right, the jolt.
Kind of. And Fourth Frontier's body shock, BS, that uses ECG data to see how your body physiologically reacts to those impacts. So, related concepts, but distinct measurements. SSL is about forward momentum loss.
Okay, that clarifies things. And the 5runner.com mentioned SSL is a key input for Garmin's other new metric, running economy. How do they link up?
Precisely. Garmin's running economy, or RE, is their attempt to measure how efficiently you use energy while running aerobically.
So getting the most speed for the least effort, basically.
You got it. They measure it in milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per kilometer, ml/kg/km. And just like SSL, lower is better, more efficient, like a car with better fuel economy.
So this is a big deal, right? Moving away from needing a lab, a mask, a treadmill. bringing RE measurement to everyday runs.
It's a significant shift, yeah. Traditionally, like the science literature shows, you'd measure RE in a lab, looking at oxygen uptake mLkg-min at a steady pace on a treadmill.
Right, the classic setup.
Garmin's trying to give you similar insights, but from your regular outdoor runs, or track runs. They do exclude indoor treadmill runs, trail runs, and runs where you're carrying extra weight.
Okay, and how many runs do you need for it to calculate?
Garmin says you need data from at least 4 or 5 runs, and each needs to be over 30 minutes long. It needs a decent amount of data to establish your baseline RE.
And what data points is it actually using from those runs?
It's pulling together quite a few things. Your heart rate, obviously, your speed, and then those running dynamics, stride length, ground contact time, vertical oscillation, and crucially, step speed loss, SSL.
Ah, so that's the direct link. The braking metric feeds the economy metric.
Exactly. Garmin's logic is that braking, which SSL measures, costs energy. Every time you decelerate, even slightly, your body has to work harder to get back up to speed. So, higher SSL means higher energy cost, which means poorer running economy.
That makes total sense. If you keep tapping the brakes, you burn more gas.
Pretty much.
So, if the 5K runner works on smoothing out his stride, reducing that braking, his Garmin RE score should theoretically improve, get lower.
That's the idea, yes. Minimize the braking, reduce the energy waste, and you should see that reflected in a better, lower RE score from Garmin.
Does Garmin give any tips on how to actually train for better RE?
They do offer some general guidance, things like gradually increasing your weekly mileage, adding strength training to your routine, and doing some sprint workouts. These all align pretty well with what the broader science suggests helps improve running efficiency over time.
Okay, it sounds like a potentially powerful tool, but are there any, caveats, limitations we should keep in mind?
Oh, definitely. It's important to be realistic. First off, this is Garmin's own algorithm. We don't have independent, peer-reviewed studies yet comparing Garmin's RE directly to lab-based oxygen consumption measurements.
So no third-party validation yet?
Not that we've seen. Second, Garmin themselves say the SSL data isn't captured absolutely continuously. There might be tiny gaps where that key input is missing. And finally, while seeing the number is interesting, we're still figuring out what specific RE values mean in practice, like what's a good score? How much does a change of X points actually translate to faster race times? The actionability is still developing.
Right. It's a new window, but we're still learning how to interpret the landscape outside. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What does the established science say about running economy in general? This isn't a new concept, obviously.
Absolutely not. It's been studied for decades. In scientific terms, running economy is usually defined as that oxygen cost of running at a specific submaximal speed.
Submaximal, not flat out.
Exactly. Usually expressed as mLkg-min or mLkg-kO. And a really key takeaway from all the research is just how much it varies between individuals. What works for one runner might not work for another.
So personalization is key.
Totally. You need to figure out what works for your body and your mechanics.
And why is RE so important, especially for runners doing longer stuff? Like the 5K runner tackles various distances.
It becomes absolutely crucial for endurance. Even small gains in efficiency add up massively over, say, a half marathon or marathon. You save a little bit of energy with every single step.
Ah, so it accumulates.
Hugely. It can mean less fatigue later in the race, maybe a faster overall time. In fact, for well-trained runners, RE is often a better predictor of performance than even their VO2 max.
Wow, better than VO2 max. That's saying something.
Yeah.
So what factors does the science point to as influencing RE?
It's a whole collection of things. Your basic metabolism and cardiorespiratory fitness matter, of course. How well your body generates energy and delivers oxygen.
The engine basics.
Right. Then there's biomechanics, your running form, how you move. That's huge. Neuromuscular factors, too, how your brain and muscles talk to each other and coordinate everything.
Okay.
Plus, your training history, the shoes you wear. Think about the carbon plate debate.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And even things like heat, wind, altitude, all play a role.
You mentioned the shoes. How do those fancy carbon-plated shoes supposedly help with RE, according to the research?
Well, the study suggests the stiff plate changes how your foot and ankle work during ground contact. It seems to reduce energy loss in the midsole and maybe return a bit more energy, acting like a spring or a lever.
Less energy wasted.
Essentially, it alters the mechanics, especially around the calf muscles, leading to small but potentially meaningful metabolic savings, better economy. But it's more about the shoe's mechanics than making your body fundamentally more efficient, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's an equipment assist.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to hammer this home, running economy is efficiency below your maximum effort. How's that different again from VO2 max and VA2 max?
Right. Critical distinction. VO2 max, that's your maximal oxygen uptake, the absolute highest rate your body can consume oxygen during really intense exercise. Think of it as the maximum size of your aerobic engine.
Peak capacity.
Peak capacity. Then VVO2 max, velocity at VO2 max, that's the slowest speed at which you actually hit that peak VO2 max.
Okay.
Running economy is different. It's about how much oxygen you use at submaximal speeds. Those paces you actually hold for distance races, you could have a massive VO2 max.
Yeah. Huge engine.
Yeah, but be really uneconomical, burning way more fuel than someone else with the same engine size running at the same steady pace. RE is about fuel efficiency, not engine size.
That's a great analogy. So the Wikipedia source mentioned lab measurements on treadmills. How do they typically do that?
In the lab, they'll usually have a runner run at one or maybe several constant, steady speeds on a treadmill, maybe for 5–10 minutes at each speed.
While wearing the mask, I assume.
Yep, wearing the mask to measure oxygen intake and carbon dioxide output. They calculate the oxygen cost at those speeds. Often they'll standardize it, maybe estimate the cost at, say, 16 kilometers per hour so they can compare different people.
And express it as MLKG min or MLKG kilo.
Exactly. Though it's worth remembering, treadmill running isn't identical to running outside. No air resistance, the belt moves under you. Muscle activation can be slightly different.
Good point. Does the science give us any, benchmark numbers for RE? What's typical?
There are some published ranges. For example, studies might show recreational runners around, say, 47 millikiljoule at 14 kilometers, whereas elites might be down closer to 40 millikiljoule at that same speed.
So lowers is better, more efficient.
Correct. But these are just averages. There's a lot of individual variation, even among elites. Your own VO2 max influences it, too. It really highlights that economy is quite personal.
Okay, let's dig into those biomechanical factors again. What does research say about body size and shape?
Well, body mass matters a bit. Heavier runners tend to be slightly less economical, generally speaking. But where you carry the mass matters more. Weight on your feet or lower legs costs more energy than weight around your hips.
Distal weight is worse.
Seems to be, yeah. Limb length is more complicated. The research isn't totally clear on its impact.
What about running style, stride length, foot strike?
This is interesting. Most research suggests that the stride length you naturally choose is probably the most economical for you. Trying to force a longer or shorter stride often makes you less efficient.
Don't mess with what feels natural.
Generally, yeah. Vertical oscillation, how much you bounce up and down, it's complex. But excessive bouncing likely wastes energy. As for foot strike, the idea that forefoot striking is always better for economy hasn't really held up consistently in studies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it seems your habitual pattern, what your body is used to, is often the most efficient for you. However, one thing that does seem linked to better economy is shorter ground contact time, less time spent on the ground per step.
Okay. And lastly, those neuromuscular factors. Brain and muscles working together.
Super important. Practice makes perfect, right? As you run more, your brain gets better at sending signals, activating muscles efficiently, reducing wasted effort like muscles fighting each other.
Or coordinated.
Exactly. Muscle power matters too. Faster runners often show more muscle preactivation just before landing and shorter contact times. And lower leg stiffness helps think tendons acting like springs.
The stretch shortening cycle.
Precisely. Using that elastic energy return efficiently is key for propulsion without costing extra metabolic energy.
Okay, bringing it all back to Garmin. Their RE uses SSL, that braking metric. So if the 5K runner experiments, maybe tries a smoother stride, maybe plays with foot strike like he mentioned on his site, trying to lower his SSL.
Right.
What should he expect to see on his Garmin RE score?
Logically, if he successfully reduces his SSL, indicating less braking,
Less wasted energy?
then his Garmin RE score should improve. It should trend lower, indicating better economy. The basic physics supports it. Less braking equals more efficient forward motion. While Garmin's exact algorithm is secret, the science says minimizing deceleration should help economy.
So it aligns with the underlying principles. Okay, final recap, make sure everyone's clear, especially if the 5K runner is listening closely for his next run analysis.
Let's do it.
VO2 max, size of your aerobic engine, potential.
Yep. Maximum capacity.
The VO2 max,
Yep.
how fast you're going when you hit that maximum engine output.
The speed at VO2 max, right?
In running economy, including Garmin's version using SSL, that's about how efficiently you use your fuel, your oxygen, at those steady, submaximal paces you actually race at.
Exactly. You can have that Ferrari engine, high VO2 max, but if your RE is poor, it's like driving with the handbrake slightly on. You're wasting fuel.
Great analogy. Improving RE means taking that handbrake off.
Precisely. A runner with amazing VO2 max but poor RE will burn more energy at a given pace than someone with maybe a slightly lower VO2 max but fantastic economy. That efficiency is often the real key to unlocking endurance performance.
This has been really illuminating. Diving into Garmin's new metrics, step speed loss, and running economy, and seeing how they connect to and differ from the established science is fascinating.
It really is. Understanding SSL as a measure of braking and seeing how Garmin incorporates it into their RE metric on the Forerunner 970 gives runners a new lens.
A new way to think about efficiency.
Yeah, and by understanding all these factors, biomechanics, neuromuscular stuff, training hopefully runners like yourself and the 5K runner can get deeper insights, maybe find ways to tweak things for better performance.
So here's something to chew on for your next run. Now that you've got this deeper understanding of step speed loss, braking, and running economy, what's one small thing you could experiment with? A tiny adjustment in your form, maybe how you think about your cadence or foot landing, just to see if you can nudge that efficiency needle.
Yeah, become your own experiment.
Exactly. Check out resources like the 5K Runner site for more ideas, and think about how this applies to your running. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.